The judge stopped reading my father's will halfway through and looked straight at me. "Mr. Carter, these documents were changed after your father's death." My stomach dropped. Across the courtroom, my older brother Daniel stopped smiling. For months, he told everyone I wanted Dad's house. Now the judge was saying someone had secretly changed the papers. I looked at Daniel, and for the first time, he looked afraid. I didn't know how deep it went. Dad had always been quiet. I trusted him completely then. After my mother died, he raised Daniel and me alone. We weren't rich, but Dad built a construction business himself. When he got sick, Daniel suddenly became very involved. He handled appointments, bills, and paperwork. I lived 3 hours away, so I trusted my brother to help. Then Dad died on a cold Monday morning. Daniel called me before the hospital did. He sounded broken, but something about his voice felt rehearsed. At the funeral, he hugged me and whispered, "Dad wanted you to have nothing to worry about." I thought he meant comfort. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, Daniel showed me a copy of the will. It said he received the house, the business, and almost all the savings. I was left with an old pickup truck and a few personal items. I stared at the page, unable to understand it. Dad had always promised us he would treat us equally. Daniel said Dad must have changed his mind near the end. I wanted to believe him. I even apologized for doubting my brother. But that night, I found an old voicemail from Dad saved on my phone. His voice was weak, but clear. "Son, when the time comes, make sure you get the blue folder." I had no idea what the blue folder was. If stories about family secrets keep you watching, subscribe to Family Betrayal. The faces, photos, backgrounds, and scenes in this video are visual recreations for storytelling and imagination, not actual footage. The next morning, I called Daniel and asked about the folder. There was a long silence. Then he said, "There is no folder." That answer scared me more than anything else, because I suddenly realized he had heard Dad mention it before. I drove back to Dad's house that afternoon, hoping I was chasing nothing. The house felt different without him. Every room reminded me of childhood, but now Daniel had changed the locks. He finally let me inside after I threatened to call a lawyer. I went straight to Dad's office. The blue folder was not in the desk. It was not in the filing cabinet. Then I noticed a small scratch beneath the bottom drawer. I pulled it open and found an envelope taped underneath. My hands shook when I saw Dad's handwriting. "For my sons. Open only if something is wrong with my will." Inside was a copy of an older will and a letter. Dad had written that everything was supposed to be divided equally. He also wrote that he suspected someone might pressure him to sign new documents while he was ill. My heart started pounding. I called the attorney whose name appeared on the letter. He sounded surprised when I mentioned Dad's final will. "I never prepared that document," he said. "Your father signed his last will with me 3 months earlier, and it was very different." That was when fear turned into anger. Someone had created another will. The attorney sent me a certified copy. It left the house and business split equally between Daniel and me. There was also a note attached from Dad asking the attorney to keep the original safe. I thought we had the proof. But when we went to retrieve the original, the attorney's assistant told us the file was missing. Someone had accessed the storage room after Dad died. I went home feeling sick. Daniel suddenly called me. His voice was cold. "Stop digging," he said. "You have no idea what you're getting into." I asked him why he was afraid of an honest will. He hung up. That night, I barely slept. Dad's letter haunted me. Then my phone rang at 2:14 a.m. It was an unknown number. A woman whispered, "Your father left something else behind." I went still. The next morning, I met the woman in a coffee shop near the nursing home. She introduced herself as Karen, a former records clerk. She looked nervous and kept checking the window. Karen told me she had seen Daniel arrive with a man she didn't recognize. The man carried a leather case. Daniel told staff they were there to discuss important family paperwork. Dad had been heavily medicated that week. Karen had copied one page from the visitor log before leaving her job. Daniel's name was there. So was the stranger's. But the biggest surprise was a security note. A nurse had written that Dad appeared confused after the meeting and repeatedly asked why he had signed something. I felt my chest tighten. Dad had been vulnerable, and my brother had used that moment. I gave everything to my lawyer. We filed an objection, and the judge scheduled a hearing. Daniel's attorney argued that Dad had willingly changed his will. They made me look greedy, bitter, and jealous. For a moment, I wondered if everyone would believe them. Then my lawyer found something hidden in the property records. 2 days after Dad supposedly signed the new will, Daniel had transferred the business into a company controlled by himself. The transfer required Dad's signature, but Dad's medical records showed he was in the hospital that day. The evidence was getting stronger. Still, I wanted one thing more than money. I wanted to know why my brother had done this. At the hearing, Daniel looked at me. "You always thought Dad loved you more," he said quietly. "I spent years taking care of him while you were gone." His words hurt because I felt guilty. I almost apologized. My lawyer placed another document down. Then my lawyer placed a bank record on the table. It showed Daniel had moved Dad's money before the will was signed. The courtroom went silent, but my lawyer was still holding one more document. "Listen." The notary sat down and looked at Daniel for several seconds before speaking. "I did not witness your father sign that will." I felt the room disappear around me. He explained that Daniel had brought the documents to him already signed. Daniel claimed Dad had signed them earlier. The notary had refused to certify them without seeing the signature happen, but Daniel pressured him and later returned with a different page. The notary had kept a private copy because something felt wrong. My lawyer placed it before the judge. The page had a date that proved the document existed before the day Daniel claimed Dad had signed it. There was also a handwritten note from the notary. "Signature not witnessed." Daniel started crying. Not angry tears. Real tears. He looked at me and whispered. I was scared. I didn't know what to say. Daniel admitted his debts had scared him. He thought Dad would cut him off, so he convinced himself that stealing the estate was his only way out. Then my lawyer showed him Dad's letter. Dad knew about the debts and had planned to help him start over. Daniel had destroyed our family over something Dad was ready to forgive. The judge rejected the altered will. Dad's wishes were honored, and the money Daniel had taken had to be returned. I won, but victory felt hollow. Outside, Daniel asked if I could ever forgive him. I said, maybe one day, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Months later, I restored Dad's old workshop and kept his tools where he left them. On the wall, I placed his final letter. Never let money decide what family means. That became my lesson. If you were me, would you forgive Daniel or walk away for good? Tell me in the comments. Share this story with someone you love and subscribe to Family Betrayal for more stories where truth survives betrayal. I learned that money can rebuild a house, but trust is what makes it a home.